Aceh's environmental activist Farwiza Farhan has been chosen as one of the inspirational figures who were included in the October issue of TIME100 Next. She was added to the list for her contributions to natural conservation, especially around Aceh's Mount Leuser. And without further ado, now we have Farwiza Farhan in the studio to talk about her conservation efforts. Good afternoon, Wiza.
Good afternoon.
Thank you so much for being here, and also congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
Tell us about that. Did you expect that? Is it something that you foresee in the before?
I mean, I did send an email to Time when they asked me about my work. But I don't necessarily imagine that I would ever be named as TIME100 Next. I don't imagine myself to be on the cover. This is not how I foresee what my future would become when I started working in conservation.
What drove you to conservation in the first place? Love.
Love.
I know this sounds ridiculous, but the story was as a child, I spent a lot of time in nature. I spent a lot of time climbing trees, playing in streams, swimming in the rivers. And when I was in high school, I went snorkeling for the first time in Pulawe, in Aceh. And at that time, still quite young, I watched a lot of nature documentaries. I watched a lot of BBC Blue Planet. I fell in love with the ocean. At first, I thought, I need to figure out how I could do this for the rest of my life, a job that would allow me to go diving all the time.
At a very young age already, you decided.
That's sort of like what I had in my mind. And when my father asked, what do you want to study? I was like, I want to study marine biology, but I don't know what I would do if that's the path that I choose to pursue. My father was like, yeah, choose to study whatever as long as you excel in whatever you're doing. I was not the best student. I was not great, but I managed to graduate. And when I graduate, I come back to that patch of reef where I fall in love with the ocean for the first time, to find it quite destroyed and bleached because of rising sea temperature, because of tsunami, because at that time, destructive fishing methods were still utilized in that area, and it broke my heart. And it kind of made me feel powerless. And somehow, in the back of my mind, I thought, maybe instead of trying to protect the ocean, I'll try to protect the forest. Maybe that would be easier. Of course, I was naive, but one can hope.
Wow. I mean, looking at you, Wiza, it's like looking at all the heroes. I mean, we have women heroes from Aceh, and you are like the latest woman hero from Aceh, so this is the latest edition of the heroes. We're very proud. And also, from what you said, you fell in love with the environment. And what I've seen also, what you mentioned a lot circulated in the media, you mentioned that, everybody knows Amazon, but nobody knows where Leuser is. It is, hence, very important for the surrounding areas, especially for the water. Can you tell us more about that?
I grew up in Aceh. I'm an Achenese. And in all honesty, when I started working in the Leuser ecosystem, I don't even know where it is. I could not name the districts where Leuser spans across. I was unable to name the wildlife that live in this landscape. So it has been a journey for me to get to know this landscape and to better understand how incredibly important it is for our life and our livelihood. Forests provide ecosystem services that we take for granted, such as water, clean air, protection from landslides and floods. So our ability to link between what the environment, forest and nature gave us to our economy has been completely lost in our education system. Somehow we are not taught the idea that nature have its own regulation that could not be defied by human. We looked at our deforestation data, and we looked at the pattern of disasters that is happening in the landscape in Aceh. We have floods regularly now, almost every year. One of our GIS team managed to overlay the deforestation data and the floods. And we look at one of these water catchment to see deforestation in the past 20 years has been relatively low in this area, but floods has been happening. So we look a little bit further back. Once we look a little bit further back, apparently deforestation that happened between 1980s to 2000 has been very high in this particular water catchment. And that's how floods begin to manifest 20, 30 years later. So we think about the action that we choose to take today and how it would implicate us in the future.
Well, okay. Probably we owe our Mother Nature of, you know, destructing this whole thing that we're now enjoying at the moment.
Yeah.
And also, we might know the ecosystem in Leuser from you and also from your work. But what was actually the first action you took when the first time you set your foot on that particular area and then, you know, deciding, okay, to go to that kind of directions, I have to take this first?
It's not necessarily clear for me. So my journey to Leuser was me wanting to work in conservation, not knowing exactly where I could do it and how I could do it, how I could contribute. It was not particularly clear. But somehow, one day, I was in a meeting. I was supporting a friend, and then I was in a meeting when someone asked me, do you want to join our organization? Do you want to work in Leuser? I'm like, yeah, sure. I did not ask what my role would be. I did not ask what my salary would be. I just say yes, because I wanted to work in conservation so much. So soon after that, I had the opportunity to visit the Leuser for the first time. We went to Ketambe Research Station that located in the heart of the Leuser ecosystem. You see, Leuser look a little bit like butterfly, and Ketambe is right in the middle of it.
Right.
And we went trekking in the forest, and I come across my first female orangutan with a baby.
Ooh.
So she was like swinging from trees to trees, eating, chilling, no problem. And the baby was like looking and observing us. I was so inexperienced at trekking in the forest. I was wearing running shoes, you know, the one that have lots of holes
Yes.
in it. And I was wearing jeans, and I was wearing a shirt that I would wear to the office because I take it too lightly and I have no idea how to trek in the forest.
Wow.
And of course, you know, the forest is full of everything, right? It's so full of life. It have orangutan, and it also have leeches.
Yeah.
As a girl who spent a lot of time in the city, I don't necessarily know how to deal with those, you know, crawly leeches who's trying to get to me, and I ran, and everyone laughed. And of course, you can't outrun leeches.
Yes, of course.
But then my boss at the time asked me, if you hate leeches so much, why do you want to protect this forest? It dawned on me that, you know, the ecosystem might not be a simple, straightforward thing that would enable us to directly say, oh, I want to protect it because of XYZ. It's a complex living system that comprises of all those things that we love and also all those things that we may not like. But still, each species have an important role in the ecosystem, and we can't pick and choose which species we want to protect. We need to protect it whole.
Which one to save?
Exactly, for it to function.
Right.
Leeches have a role in this ecosystem for us to know that there's still a lot of mammals in that area. And mammals have roles that oftentimes we are yet to be able to fully describe what they do in the ecosystem and how that would impact us.
All right. So, Wiza, you're chairing the Nature and Environment Aceh, or HAKA, and you've been in this business or in this environment conservationist for quite some time, and it must be something difficult, I heard. Hence, Indonesia is abundant in its forests, of course, the marine as well, biodiversity, for example. So could you tell us what difficulties, and perhaps you being mentioned by Bill Gates there with your Instagram, you know, follow this leader, future leader women.
And also, probably
brings a
what
spotlight
can
to
we
her.
do to help?
Yeah, and What do you expect? You know, what kind of help do you expect?
Oh, a lot. I mean, if it's a matter of health, I think each of us have a role to play.
Yeah.
Especially, you know, the media could highlight stories from all across the countries. Today I hear news that is saddening. We have lost 70% of our biodiversity globally within since 1970s. It's less than half a century. In less than 50 years, we have lost 70% of our biodiversity, and we are heading towards biodiversity collapse. When we look at countries like Indonesia, Indonesia still have a lot of forests, but we're also facing a lot of challenge on what to do and how to manage, how to protect these forests. We know that there's a whole lot of scientific research that goes into forest governance and forest management, and we know that indigenous rights and customary communities are the best guardian of forests in the area. We need to tap into their wisdom instead of treating them as non-experts. We also need to encourage more research to look into, you know, this biodiversity, not only the scientific research, but also social science, and how we better understand the different interests in the management and decision around the forest in Indonesia. I think one of the biggest problems that we are facing beyond climate change, beyond biodiversity collapse, is the problem of apathy. The idea that the work to protect the environment, the idea to protect forests is the work of someone else. The idea to manage our environmental issues is the job of either government or conservationists.
It is our job, right?
Exactly.
We are the stakeholders of this world.
Precisely. We see floods happening in Jakarta within the past week, and we have a stake on allowing that to happen. Sure, we can't control the rain at this point, but we could have this decision on how we manage this city, how we manage our waste problems, and that stretch out to every aspect of life. And of course, someone in Jakarta or someone in the village closer to the forest would have different challenges and different problems that they are facing, but all of us need to have more ownership.
Let's say we are here in the city, and our audience now watching presumably are in the cities, in respective cities. What can we do as a starter? Because we need the first step. Because we need the day one, not one day.
Yeah, we are not there by the forest. I mean, the leaders, the indigenous people.
What can we do?
known.
We need to demand more. I mean, I am, on one hand, very big on individual action, on things like reducing our own personal carbon footprint, reducing our own waste. But at the same time, we need to demand better policies. We need to improve the conversation around nature, around climate policies, around biodiversity protection. We need to change the regulation. We need to push further for the law around protection of biodiversity to be issued as much in the same way that we ask for the rights for women to govern over their own bodies.
Yeah.
In the same way that we demand improved democracies, in the same way that we demand our politicians to make better decisions around our livelihood. The decision that we make today over climate and biodiversity is a decision that would impact us in the next few years. 2030 is not so long from today, and the next generations for I don't know how long. I mean, I don't have children, but there are children in my life whom I love so much, and I want to see them do well way into the future.
Wow, what we do is going to be so much impacting what the future is going to be like. Thank you so much. And once again, congratulations. We hope that you are still going to be in the conversation side.
Conservation.
Yeah, I mean,
But probably I should thank you more on what you've been doing.
Exactly.
This meant so much to us. Let's say, us here in the city, we could not do the things that you've been doing. And thank you for being such a reminder for us.
It's a wake-up call.
Yeah, it's a wake-up call that we have something to protect. Not only one thing, but we can't choose. We have to protect everything. Farwiza, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I have to say that I'm not alone, yeah, in this. I'm working with so many people, and so many people have play an incredibly important roles in making sure that we move forward with the protection of the landscape that we love so much.
And please do extend our respect to our brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
In that sense.
All do.
Thank you, Farwiza,
Thank
for
you.
coming to see today.